It was Christmas Eve, babe. But we're not in the drunk tank. We're back in my palatial front room in not so sunny Snodland to deliver Seconds Out ReFLEXions. I'm Danny Flexen. We do this every Monday, including, it seems, Christmas Eve, 4:30 PM. So yeah, we're not in the drunk tank, not this time anyway. But have been hearing a few things from some old men over the weekend. No surprise there, being at the boxing in Manchester. But the song they've been singing is not Rare Old Mountain Dew, it's not even Galway Bay, but I think what we've heard most of all is Leeds, 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 as Josh Warrington pulled off what was the best victory of what has been a fairy tale journey so far in clearly outpointing Carl Frampton to make the first defence of his IBF featherweight title. Frampton went in as the favourite, wider skill set, greater experience, they said. I said as well, if I'm honest. But Warrington never let him get settled, never let him make those supposed advantages take hold. He started out on the front foot, took a bit of a look in the first round, and then midway through the first just unleashed a fusillade of, went a bit Ron McIntosh there, didn't I? Unleashed a fusillade of crazy blows, switching angles well with his feet as he did throughout the fight, cut the ring off so well, and forced Frampton into the type of fight he was never going to win. Frampton needed it to be more of a chess match, using his greater accuracy and timing to pick Josh off on the way in. It was, apart from a few rounds that Frampton did win, you know, I had him 3 behind at the end, but apart from that, it became more of a battle, a war of attrition on the inside. And in that sense, Josh's greater compact style, the way he moved around the target, the way he kept his punches short and tight, that gave him the edge in those exchanges. Frampton was hurt on a number of occasions, setting to rights the myth that Warrington's a non-puncher. Frampton himself said afterwards he doesn't know where the logic for that came from, because he certainly showed the scars of battle, as did Warrington. You know, Frampton more than played his part, put him in a dogfight, he can hold his own with most people. Warrington was just a bit too fresh, a bit too clever, and a bit too persistent for him when it was in the pocket. We don't know what Frampton's going to do next. He talked afterwards about having a young family, he doesn't want to make any decisions in the heat of the moment, which is fair enough. If he did decide to retire now, his legacy is secure. He's unified champion at super bantamweight, added another belt of featherweight, of course. And, you know, there's no shame in losing to Warrington, who's on hot form at the moment and is a fresh, young fighter approaching or at his peak. As for Warrington, he wants to unify. He'd like to go over to the States for the next one. I saw his father and trainer, Sean O'Hagan, predictably jubilant after the fight, in the bowels of Manchester Arena, going through the car park to meet the Leeds fans that had hung around for their hero. Sean was saying he'd quite like it to be Vegas next. Who can blame him? Imagine how many Leeds fans, Leeds again, imagine how many of them they could take over for a big fight against, say, WBO champion Oscar Valdez, for example, WBA champion Leo Santa Cruz, if he wants to fight more than once this year, you know, or next year rather. Forget how close we are to New Year. So we should wait and see what's next for Warrington. But it was a gripping fight. Frank Warren called it the best British title fight he'd ever seen on UK soil. Not British title fight, sorry, world title fight involving British people. I'm not sure it was. I need to have a think again to see which other fights I've seen. But it was certainly a gripping, compelling contest. Maybe a little bit too in favour of one fighter over the other to be a true fight of the century, or whatever Warren was trying to call it. We'll see. On the undercard of that one, before we move on to the London show, we saw Liam Williams put on something of a masterclass, his own version of Saunders Lemieux, as he picked apart Mark Heffron to win the British middleweight title. Williams, of course, made his name at super welter, including those 2 hard fights with Liam Smith. Moved up for the first time to middleweight and just decimated the bigger man. Heffron didn't really seem to know what to do with him. Williams' movement was great. He picked his punches well, and the thing that impressed me the most about Williams' performance was that he never got greedy. He'd land 1 or 2, he'd even rock Heffron, but he'd never follow up and put himself at risk. He'd then take a step to the side, step back, move away, have a think, and then come back for a second phase of attack. Heffron seemed to follow Williams around too much rather than cutting the ring off. He had quite a wide guard, so he left himself open on a number of occasions. But let's not be too critical of him. You know, he's a big, powerful guy. He showed a lot of heart to stay in there. Felt his corner could have pulled him out before the ref stopped it late on. But Williams was just punch perfect. It's got to be said. He's never looked so good. My hope is that the quality of his performance doesn't persuade him to stay up at middleweight. I still think, regardless, Heffron looked a bigger man, and I think as Williams, if he stepped up in levels at £160, he might find it quite difficult against some of the bigger guys with a bit more intelligence and a bit more experience than Heffron. So I think his best weight is still down at 154, but obviously it's his decision to make. The other big news on the undercard was Martin Murray suffering a surprise defeat to Hassan Undam and G-Cam. Scrappy fight, hard to score, hard to argue with the result, although Murray did, at least initially. What's next for him, we don't know. I mean, he seems certainly closer to retirement than someone like Frampton. But it was a close fight, a rematch could happen, maybe he could improve for that, so we'll wait and see what Murray decides also. Over in London, of course, there was the big rematch, which our colleagues, Raheem and his colleague Frank, were ringside for, which saw Dillian Whyte finally put to rest any controversy between him and Derek Chisora from the first fight, which he narrowly won on points. Many people thought Chisora won, by knocking Chisora out late in the fight with a big left hook, his pet punch, of course, and then getting into it with Anthony Joshua in the post-fight. That fight could obviously happen in April, the the Whyte-Joshua rematch, or Joshua-Whyte rematch. Has Whyte improved enough to make it more of an even fight? I guess time will tell, but as it looks unlikely that Joshua will be fighting either Tyson Fury or Deontay Wilder in April at Wembley Stadium, Whyte seems like the best available contender. He's beaten so many good people this year, you know, Lucas Brown, Joseph Parker, and now Chisora, to right that wrong, or to right that dispute that they had before. So he seems like the leading available contender, and a strong contender for British Fighter of the Year. There's also Warrington comes into that equation, having beaten Lee Selby against the odds and then Carl Frampton against the odds. So we'll have to think about that. Maybe next week on ReFLEXions, when we look back at the year just gone, that'll be a good time to think about Fighter of the Year. Elsewhere on that London card, Charlie Edwards, another one against the odds, won the WBC flyweight title, outpointing Christopher Rosales. Heartwarming victory for Edwards, whose mum has not been very well recently, and, you know, changed trainer recently. He lost his previous world title chance to John Real Casimero when he probably wasn't quite ready for it. Showed he was ready this time. A lovely display from him. I think everyone's really happy that he got the job done. They were the main fights from London. Talked about the main fights from Manchester. We'd like to know, obviously, what you think were the best fights of the weekend. If you watch both pay-per-views, it'd be a lot easier if you've caught up since. If not, which pay-per-view did you choose and why? But we want to know, who was the standout performance of the weekend? Was it Charlie Edwards? Was it Josh Warrington? Was it Dillian Whyte? Was it Liam Williams? Or was it someone completely different? Let us know your thoughts below. I'll let you know also that the setting is going to change soon. I know I've been saying that for weeks. We have got a green screen. We're waiting to get it all set up. But more to the point, even if that doesn't happen, I'm actually moving house in about 3 weeks. So I might have a nicer front room to show you if we don't get the green screen set up. But for everything else, I just want to wish you all a Merry Christmas. I really appreciate the support you've shown to ReFLEXions and its sister programme FlexPectations so far. We will improve the production, we will improve the setting. Can't say we're going to improve the presenter, but at least you've got a bit of a song from me at the start. You know, what else can't I do? What else can I fail at? We'll see next year on ReFLEXions. But thanks for all your support. Leave your comments below, and I'll see you next week, New Year's Eve, to look back on 2018, 4:30 PM every Monday. Thank you.